morning and welcome, Patriot News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. We're back from the holidays. Yes, I hope you all had a great Christmas. Of course, got New Year's Eve tomorrow. We're going to be closed early, and then we'll be off on Wednesday, and then we will be back in action for the new year after that. So kind of, almost the end of the holidays. What a crazy time it is in the holiday. Right? You do all this stuff, right? You get ready, all the build up, and you get the family going, and then it's over. And then you're like, gosh, man, now what do I do? I know what I did. I spent most of my time off catching up on sleep, trying to do nothing in particular. Watch some football. We got a bunch of football. You got the playoffs now, the college football playoffs the next couple of days for those types of things, and of course, a lot of news happened, right? I don't know if you saw, right? The government's going to be out of money again in a couple of weeks. What's that going to mean? All this other stuff. We'll talk about it. Very important things happening, but I had family in town. They left town, and then, so here we are. Jason, I was just relaxing, trying not to think about anything that made my brain hurt, anything about work, right? I just wanted to be like, I just want dumb stuff that has no point. That's all I could deal with. I couldn't deal with, I don't want to deal with anything other than, fun stuff, right? No bad stuff. And yesterday, the streak came to an end. My wife was getting ready to jump in the shower, and she says, "There's no hot water." I'm like, "What? Huh? Did the breaker trip? Right? Did the pilot light go out on the water heater? I wonder what it is." Go downstairs, open the garage, and it was like Noah's Ark in there, right? The water heater, just water shooting out everywhere. Oh yeah, so I got slapped back to reality yesterday. So I'm ready to go today. You know what? I'm already ready to go. I probably got to get retrained. We haven't done a show in a few days, but yeah, my blissful do absolutely nothing, deal with nothing, came to a screeching halt yesterday.
Well, I don't have that emergency, but our ice maker stopped working on the fridge, so I guess good time to be
an emergency.
I don't know what happened.
I need cold water.
But the hot water heater, Joe. Yeah, I know you got that new place, so it's probably one of the things that. When you buy a place, there's certain things that are going to last longer than others. I guess you've got the raw end of the stick on the water heater.
Yeah. So it was just wonderful. It was first, you go into panic mode, and then you're like, okay, let's just get the water turned off, right? Get the flood stopped, so we get that done, and then we got garage cabinets, they're all full of water, and I got the squeegee out, right? I'm trying to get the water out of the garage, and then of course, you got to make the call, get the plumber, get all that stuff. So, and then of course, let's face it, at the end of the day, it always ends the same, right? Got to write a check, right? Yeah, at the end, you got to write the check to get it fixed. So there you go. I had a great time. My time off was wonderful. Right up until yesterday. Our toll-free number here at Patriot, 800-951-0592. The website at allamericangold.com, and it's already been a crazy start here to this Monday. Getting ready to wrap up the year. A lot of selling happening on Wall Street over the weekend. Janet Yellen said, hey, the government, we're going to have to take emergency measures starting in 2 weeks. So January, no later than January the 14th. So right before the Trump inauguration. You know what's so funny to me is they were doing, trying to figure out, how we can spend money and act like we're not spending money, get the continuing resolution. Remember, Donald Trump said, hey, take care of the debt ceiling, right? Can we do that? Yeah, no chance that was going to happen. You didn't hear Janet Yellen say anything, though. You would have thought, as the Treasury Secretary, she may have told Congress, hey, guys, by the way, if you don't, we're going to hit the debt limit on the 14th. So, a week before Trump gets into office, the Treasury's going to take these emergency measures. And, Jason, it's kind of locked in. Doesn't look like there's going to be any votes, anything of this nature on the debt ceiling whatsoever. So I guess the good news is, here's the good news when they hit the debt limit like this. They kind of stopped counting for a while, right? And the debt's still piling up. They just don't tell you how much. And then, of course, the rating agencies, they tend to frown upon those things. So, yeah, no problems. We'll be back. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. A quick look in at the markets. The Dow is down just under 500 points today. Believe it or not, that's at least a little bit of an improvement from where it was earlier today. It's been down as much as 700 points. The S&P's down 70. The NASDAQ's down 270. The 10-year note will watch here. So it's been flirting around, for that 460 level right now, 456. And that's kind of the low for the day there. Crude oil's up a little bit. Gold's down we're sitting right at that 2,600. Listen, gold's going to wait this one out here and see what's going to happen. I think the Fed rate cycle and now the debt ceiling all going to cause havoc here. Silver is off as well today. And even crypto here trying to hang on to 90,000 as a lot of people are starting to question how good not only is the U.S. economy, but the global economy, and now the issues that are starting to pop up here before the Trump inauguration, and what can be done and what cannot be done is the question. That's why we keep telling you, diversify. Get your, if you got big IRAs out there, call us, get your gold and silver IRA set up. You can take a chunk of that, put it into a gold and silver IRA. Our friends over at YRefi, right? These guys, hey, up to 10.25% fixed rate of return. You think about what some of these banker guys are saying, the Wall Streeters, the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgans, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America. They're all saying, hey, it'd be really good if we get 3% returns for the next 10 years. People aren't used to it. Like we've been living the high on the hog, and I think that's wishful thinking. Make sure you get diversified before it all happens. Check them out, investYRefi.com, or just call them at 888-YRefi24, 888-973-3433. 3924. So, Jason, over the weekend, like I said, when all of us were not paying attention, Janet Yellen comes out and says, oh, yeah, well, we're going to hit the debt ceiling. Now, she could have said it a few weeks ago, but said in a letter to Congress, she said it December 27th. I don't think anybody was there to get it. Right. I mean, I'm sure they checked their emails at home, but saying that the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023. Now, what a great title. Oh, well, yeah, we had the Fiscal Responsibility Act. It suspended the debt ceiling to January 1st, 2025. So what did that mean? It meant that the U.S. government could run as much debt as they wanted until January 1st. To give you an idea of how much this is going to affect us, we don't even get 2 weeks before Janet Yellen has to do what they call emergency measures. The thing that really is bothersome is how fast all of these things are going to happen. When she talks about the extraordinary measures to free up cash to avoid default, right? They just essentially stop paying pensions, right? Start doing a bunch of accounting tricks. Obviously, we said, like, the big question was, what was the debt going to be at inauguration? Here's the good part, I guess, Jason. When the debt ceiling gets suspended, we won't know the exact number. But here's the good news. It was going to be under $37 trillion. How much under? That remains to be seen. But at least in that regard, we won't know exactly. My guess is by the time the new Congress gets seated and they start dealing with the debt ceiling and trying to come up with a new date, I think it's going to take a while. The best case scenario is we could probably go, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe, with these emergency measures and, a lot of accounting tricks and stuff like that. But by that time, Jason, we're gonna have to have an answer, and by the time they get it solved, we may go from 36 to 38 in a blink of an eye, because, like I said, they'll stop counting. We'll probably be, if I was to guess, 36.5, 36.6, maybe 36.7, and of course I'm talking $1 trillion, $36.7 trillion. By the time they start counting again, we may miss $37 trillion altogether.
And they can push it back for whatever length of time, I guess, right? They can push it back to 1 week after the inauguration, so to speak, and then have a
this one,
no.
So we this is a little different now. So they've set this up. They've got this January 1st deadline. Then the Treasury will spend. They got a checkbook. It's supposed to have $750 billion. The fact that she says we're going to be out of money around the 14th tells me they don't. Right? So tells you that the deficits are getting worse and not better. But without Congress coming, Congress they're not there. They're not doing anything, right? They're on their vacations. It looks like we're going to go to debt limit ceiling, extraordinary measures. I wonder if we'll get some ratings. My guess is we'll probably get the rating agencies putting us on credit watch negative. I think it's going to be, again, harder to sell debt, right? What are we going to? Obviously, we're not going to default. They'll pass something. And like I said, remember, it used to be a number. Like, hey, we'll talk about the debt again at this number. They got rid of the number because the numbers are dumb, right? Because they're like, well, gosh, we don't want to tell the public. oh, we're gonna increase the debt ceiling by $2 trillion, which means in 6 months we gotta do this over again, right? Now let's just put a date, because that way the generally dumb public won't even know it happened. Because if you put a number like $2 trillion, which by the way wouldn't even get us to the end of next year. Think about this. This wouldn't. It is now the 30th of December, 2024. $2 trillion would not get us to this date next year. But could you imagine the headlines? Congress increases debt ceiling by $2 trillion. Like, that would actually make people aware. Jason, they go out of their way to say, okay, let's not do that. Right? Let's just slap a date on it, and then most people won't even care. Right? It won't be a headline because it won't say $3 trillion or $4 trillion. That'll be the fun part. I'll tell you, whatever date they give, I'll give you an idea of what the debt will be when we get to that new date. But as it sits right now, it looks like without them doing anything here, that immediately upon the new Congress and the president getting seated into office, Jason, this is going to be one of the things they're going to have to address it, and address it quickly. Let's not forget, they also have the continuing resolutions, which only go to March. Let's not forget that the Treasury, Janet Yellen's already said, oh, by the way, whoever the new Treasury Secretary is, we've got to add more debt to the debt auctions, right? And with the debt ceiling, they got to refill the checkbook. So, Jason, it's going to be quite the interesting first month or two for the Trump administration. And this just makes it that much more, because, again, people will use this as leverage. Oh, well, wait, you want us to pass the debt ceiling? We're not going to let you cut this, and we're not going to let you cut that. And, all of this stuff, again, politics at its best.
We'll see. So you're saying that they're going to set a date, and the date is looking like 3 to 4 months, is what you're saying, depending. But if they get a less money, that date comes closer, right? It depends on what they.
So let me rephrase this. So without Congress doing something, the Treasury will have 3 to 4 months of accounting tricks.
Got it. Okay.
Now we're truly going to default. So within the first 90 days of this Trump administration, it's going to have to be dealt with. I mean, it's just that simple. It's going to have to be dealt with. And that, at the end of the day, for me anyway, I think it's probably the reason why they didn't want to do it with these clean CRs they passed, because, Jason, let's face it, they want to leverage the debt ceiling with spending more money. I mean, that's really the goal, right?
I think they'll push it back. It'll be the end of March, and that's what Thomas Massey was talking about. Yep. And so it makes sense if you think about it, Joe. They'll come to some sort of a deal by the end of March, and then they'll get the tax season in April to sort of give them a boost. And that'll make the incoming administration look like they can push it out to maybe 2026, maybe with the taxes and the deal, maybe they get it pushed to January of 26. Maybe that's the goal here.
And I think that's going to be the big thing here is going to be 2026. I think that's going to be another one of those years that we're going to see some fireworks, because, again, that is when Medicare and Medicaid are really going to show issues and need more money, and we're going to see that Social Security. By the way, that was another thing that got passed. I don't know if you guys paid attention. Congress did pass. There was a bunch of federal employees that, they get a different deal, but they weren't eligible for Social Security benefits. They decided, well, you know what? You need them like everybody else needs them. And essentially, it took half of a year. Now, they said half of a year. Social Security, the trust fund will run out half a year sooner. My guess is it's going to be more like a year sooner than what they're saying. But 2026, we're going to find out that, hey, the fact of the matter is we probably don't get to 2030 with Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So, Jason, there's a lot here. I know that they want to, cut deficit spending. Here's the problem now. It almost is they have to. The interest on the debt keeps piling up. People really, here's the sad part. You're going to learn how devastating 0% interest rates for 15 years really was. How haunting that is going to be for the next 10 to 15 years. The amount of debt that got financed at near zero, it was really beyond what most people thought. We went from like $5 trillion to $30 trillion kind of in that time period. And almost all of it got financed at near zero. Now, the numbers add up.
Are you looking for
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here on this Monday. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. We'll close early. Then we'll be off New Year's Day. And then we'll be back at it, but a big down day here on Wall Street. Credit card, this is charge-offs, jumping again from the previous quarter now, approaching now 5%. By the way, that's the highest level going back to the third quarter of 2011. So we're getting right. That was kind of towards the end of the financial crisis, if you will. And here's the problem with all of this. This is one of those, the charge-offs are the laggers. So that's like the last thing that happens. And you really got like almost like a year lead time on this. And already we know the delinquency rates keep climbing, which means the charge-offs are going to be catching up here. We're going to be well within the financial crisis levels of credit card charge-offs as delinquency rates continue. Now they're at a 14-year high as well. And, of course, the New York Federal Reserve is the one that releases that. Now, we're not at the high delinquency rate during that financial crisis. And it's kind of, and it makes sense. People don't know. It actually happens after the crisis. The crisis really started, late 07, got full-blown in 08. The delinquency rates really didn't kind of crescendo until the end of 2009, 2010. And so here we are, right now talking about we're at 2011 levels, Jason. But again, think about this. The last time we were at these, we were in the middle of a full-blown crisis. The crisis hasn't come yet. And we're already at these elevated levels. And I think that's really the biggest thing that a lot of people are starting to get worried about is, gosh, the crisis isn't even here yet, and we're already at these high levels.
It's just been getting worse too, hasn't it, Joe? This is why things like COVID come along, right? It was already bad back then. It's been very bad. The 08 housing crash. Has it really ever gotten better? what they do is they put a Band-Aid on it. They come up with monetary mind games, and they move the system in a direction. What you and I talk about, Joe, the last couple of years, and what a lot of people that look at this stuff, guys on YouTube or whatnot, everyone's looking for this big, huge, complete collapse of the markets. I don't know if we're going to see something that big, but there's going to be a change. That's what I think everyone needs to get ready for. This is not the way it's set up going to be sustainable. There's going to have to be some black event, and then there's going to have to be somebody riding up on a white horse saying, I've got the answer. I can fix this. And we know, central bank digital currencies. Joe, I just watched some videos about a guy just trying to get his gold back from Canada. Just driving across the border. This whole thing he went through, because he wanted to go through he did a YouTube video on it. He wanted to go through the proper process. All these rules on things like that are going to change. This guy, he thought, well, just in case things go crazy, in 2019, get this, Joe, he put his gold in Canada in a bank, in a safety deposit box. And then what happened in 2020? 2+ years of can't cross the Canadian border, and his gold was sitting up there, right? Most of the people that he called and was trying to legally in 2022 get his gold back, it was this huge process, and nobody seemed to have. This is the people that run the borders, like the management. They kept telling him that it was a certain way it was going to be easy, but every time he tried crossing the border, it was a whole different story. People didn't know what was going on. And to me, Joe, there shouldn't be that kind of confusion when it comes to something like moving cash or gold across the border. The confusion is there so that way when they change the rules, then they'll be, okay, we're going to end the confusion. By the way, you're not crossing the border with cash anymore. You're going to cross the border without gold without us getting a piece of it. And these are the things, Joe, that I think are going to happen. I think a lot of the changes are already in place. They're just slowly being melted into our brains as being normal, right, Joe? Joe's mentioned before, when we drop a bunch of cash in the bank at Patriot, we have to pay for that. we get taxed. They can say that it's a fee, but it's a tax. It's going to be expensive to use cash. This monetary system worldwide is going to change, and Joe, we report on it every day. We've hit every single thing that everyone's ever talked about. All the other channels or anybody else that's into this stuff, but it's the total sum of the game, right, Joe? And there will be a big event because there's going to have to be a big push. Because, right, Joe, what, $2 trillion? You saying $2 trillion for 6 months, maybe? Is that all we're going to get? We're going to push the debt ceiling back 6 months for $2 trillion. They don't even want to mention the number. That's not going to work. The dollar is going to have to be altered. Countries don't want to use it. So the financial wizards of the world are going to have to just come up with BRICS, whatever BRICS is. Joe, we talk about we don't really know what Bitcoin is. Does anyone really know what BRICS is, really? I bet somebody knows what BRICS is, but I bet nobody. I bet it's just like the border, crossing with your cash or your gold. Nobody really knows the answers, do they, Joe? They don't know what's actually happening.
And it's I guess it's pretty simple. If you want to forget all about debt ceilings and all of this stuff, even with the huge amount of inflation, okay, which, one good thing, I guess, if you want to call it good, is GDP benefits from inflation. And what do I mean by that? The GDP of the country, let's just say we bought the same, we just did the same amount of stuff. We consumed the same amount of stuff this year as we did last year. The problem is, to pay for the same amount of stuff, it cost more. You still ended up with the same amount of stuff, but magically, the GDP went up, right? Well, why? Well, it's the same amount of stuff just cost more. But to give you an idea, we almost ran a 9% debt to GDP. Talk why that number is kind of important when we come back. Stay with us. 800-951-0592. Why is gold going to go higher next year? It's pretty simple. We just had 2 straight quarters of 3% GDP. Unfortunately, next year when they do the finals, they'll probably get revised lower because that's what everything has done. But to go back to the financial crisis, I need to give you perspective here. Remember when we were just spending like crazy? At the heart of the, right? Wall Street wasn't going to open. The government bailing out everybody. Do you know what the debt to GDP was those years? It crescendoed. It hit a high of 10%. We're almost at 9% right now. And by the way, you saw how bad October and November were, right? We're on pace to shatter the COVID stuff. Forget about the financial crisis stuff. This is how bad it is. What was the emergency that we needed 9% debt to GDP? And see, this is where the problem lies, Jason, is we're spending now. We've gotten addicted to this spending at idiotic levels when there's not a crisis. And then when the crisis comes, right, all of a sudden, this is when a big problem, right? Because now, did you imagine a year where we had, debt to GDP of 20%? Do you know what that would cost? The years of zero are going to haunt this nation like nobody's ever could have imagined. The amount of interest that we are going to pay just this year, the calendar year of 2025, will be $500 billion higher than last year. Nothing they can do about it. And the sad part is all the dangers to the upside. What do I mean by that? Well, if rates keep going higher, right? Listen, they're hoping that rates go down from this level to get to the $500 billion. Right? They need that 10-year note to get back close to 4%, not 4.6. But if it goes to 5, now it's $800 billion. Just that alone, if we didn't go into debt any more than we did last year, that put the debt at $3 trillion for the year. And we know that's not working, right? Jason, there's no amount of cutting that Elon Musk or Vivek or Trump, right? It's all, and already, right? We're already hearing them kind of back off how many people they're going to deport and what visas are good and what are bad. This whole thing, and again, with the spending limits that are approaching, this government, and primarily Janet Yellen and Jay Powell and the private central bank, along with these elected officials who literally have no clue how math works, they've set us up. This next decade's going to be terrible. I don't see anything good coming because we're going to be drowning in the debt because of all the money we borrowed for the 15 years at zero, and we took the debt, from $5 trillion to 40, and now we got to pay interest on 40. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Well, and that's why I think there's going to be a massive event coming, so that they can
count on
painful changes that people will accept. Here's the thing: that people aren't going to want to accept a lower standard of living unless the ugly thing that's happening on the news 24 hours a day tells them that it's going to happen whether the government does something or not, right? And so that'll happen. I don't know, what is it, 2025, 2026? Some event will happen. And then, just like COVID, hey, you'll put up with what you're going to have to put up with. This is what's going to happen. And, man, did it destroy the economic markets. Man, gosh darn this event. Yep. We couldn't have predicted this if we wanted to.
It wasn't our fault. Wasn't our fault. We're trying to help.
Don't be a conspiracy theorist. We didn't create this incident so that we could change things where we needed to. Because I think the dollar is going to be around for a while. I just think that they want it to be brought down into a basket of currencies. The IMF, they have a basket of currencies. They don't just do the dollar. What happened to the dollar, right? No, they have a basket of currencies. And it's a world system. They're developing as time goes on. It is a world system. It's already a world system. But pretty soon we're going to be talking about the Chinese or the Russians as a part of our system. It's just somewhere in the future, Joe, another generation of kids are going to be talking about, the yuan or the ruble as much as the dollar. There's going to be a lot of understanding on how to trade currencies back and forth. And I think it'll be very stable, and it'll be digital. It'll all be digital, Joe. Anybody looked at cryptos for a little bit of time? All these different cryptos. Oh, it's so confusing. Well, for a lot of people, world currencies can be confusing until you learn about it. That's where we're headed, Joe. We're going to have digital versions of all these currencies. It's all going to look like it's something different or a choice. But if it's all in the same realm, right, Joe? Is it really? Is there really any choice? Is there when it comes to fiat currencies?
It's the illusion of choice that they want you to have. Patriot Radio News Hour, final. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason. The gold went from less than $300 an ounce at $4 trillion in debt to probably be $3,000 an ounce, $40 trillion in debt. And now we're faced with an unprecedented level of debt that needs to be paid with seemingly no way to do it. And that's really the hard part, right? The only way to do it is to print more money. See, and of course, what does that cause? Right? Really, that is what's inflation. Inflation is money printing. We used to tell a story about the Roman coins, the denariuses. When the Romans, they just didn't have enough coinage. That was the problem. So what did they do? They started just clip the coins a little bit. They started making them, they'd get the big denarius in, and they just, let's just shave a little bit off of it. And a little bit, and a little bit, and a little. Well, pretty soon, people, got wise. Wait a minute, this denarius is smaller than the other denariuses. You know what? I need to charge more denarius. This is what's happening to America. There's no way out. I wish there was. There's no amount of cutting that's going to save it. Jason's right. They're going to create an event, tell you how they're going to save it, then you just got to comply. And I'm just going to tell you this. If you want to be able to write your own rules, you better have gold put away. It's just plain and simple. That is your big protection. $10 liberties today. We're going to put them on sale here. $13.75 on $10 liberties. Get them while you can. 800-951-0592. But Jason, I guess you could take them. This is why. Remember when people used to get mad. Well, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, it wasn't going to matter. And people get mad about that. They didn't create this debt. They didn't leave rates at zero for 15 years. The most idiotic, you know what? Idiotic isn't even the right word for that. They wrote books upon books upon books about how you never, ever, ever should do things like this because the effects of it will be horrible. But I guess last week, Janet Yellen said she was sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. And then this week waited and said, oh, well, now we're going to hit the debt limit. Good luck, guys, right? Have a good time because my job's almost done.
Yeah, it's coming. And then, Joey, one of the things we talk about as well, Jerome Powell might be leaving at some point, right? And it's got to be
2026, I guess. Yeah.
Lael Brainerd, it's got to be the CBDC. She's the CBDC Fed chief. It's got to have to be her. She knows cryptocurrencies, Joe. She's the one.
Please don't let that be. 800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back.